What is up, guys? Back here today for another video. And today I'm going to be talking about Conference Player of the Year dark horses. Now, I don't think it's that hard to predict, who are going to be the top guys in the conference. Everybody knows Malachi Tony, Jeremiah Smith, all these guys. But the reality is, there's a lot of other guys that don't really get the shine that I think potentially could climb up the ranks and become a potential Conference Player of the Year candidate. So make sure to stay tuned as we get straight into it. Before I start, I do want to mention I also just did the Conference Player of the Year predictions where I went through every single conference and predicted who I thought was going to be the conference MVP. That should already be out on my page, so make sure to check that out when you're done with this video. Now, first up, I want to talk about my American Conference dark horse player, and I'm going to go with Caden Veltkamp from the Florida Atlantic Owls. Now, Veltkamp had a really good 2025 season. He threw for like 3,600 yards, I believe, 24 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. He's really good when it comes to yards. He gets his touchdowns, all that stuff. The reality is a lot of interceptions, and I think that's something that he'll have to obviously refrain from if he wants to be in any sort of consideration for Conference Player of the Year. But yeah, I think he's a good player. I don't think Florida Atlantic's going to be very good, so that's kind of why I don't think he's getting too much shine. But I think he's a good player. If he can limit turnovers a little bit, then I do think that he could potentially climb up the ranks and could even be one of the contenders for the Conference Player of the Year. Now, for the Conference USA, I'm going to go with Sean Wilson, the wide receiver from the Delaware Blue Hens. Now, I'll spoil a little bit from my MVP video. I did end up going with Nick Minicucci, the Delaware quarterback, as my actual MVP. And one of those reasons was because of how good I think Sean Wilson and his receiving weapons will be. Now, Wilson was amazing last season, almost had 900 yards, 3 touchdowns, and was, yeah, just an overall really good player. Now, coming back, having those numbers, keeping your quarterback, keeping a similar system, I kind of, it's going to be hard to not see much of an improvement. And it's hard for a wide receiver to win an award like the MVP. But I think that if Wilson really does well, really becomes like Minicucci's primary target, and Wilson can get up to like 1,300 yards, maybe, I think it's definitely possible that he ends up with the Conference Player of the Year. Now, next up for the MAC conference, I'm going to go with Noah Kim. Now, he played a couple years at Michigan State early in his career, kind of failed there. Then he ended up going to Coastal Carolina, also failed there. So he found himself with Eastern Michigan, where he actually did a pretty good job last season. Now, going into next season, he returns his top receiver target, and he showed a lot of momentum in terms of his career, a lot of growth over the last year, and I think that Kim can end up being a pretty legit player, especially bringing back his wide receivers. Now the question is, will Eastern Michigan be good enough for him to be in consideration for the award? I'm not really sure. I'm not super high on Eastern Michigan, but I do think if they're going to be good, it's going to be a lot based on Kim. So I definitely think he has potential to be in the conversation for this award. Next up is going to be the Sun Belt Conference, and I'm going to go with Chauncey Cobb from Arkansas State. Now, I think Arkansas State is going to be pretty solid this year. I think I have them like fourth in the Sun Belt. But of course, they did lose Jalen Raynor, their star quarterback, to Iowa State, and it's going to be tough to replace him. Chauncey Cobb, however, was absolutely amazing for them last year with Raynor beside him. Now without him, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher, but I think he just proved so much last season that he's going to be a great player. And I think he can potentially not only match that, but even do a little bit better. And I think if he can get numbers that high and Arkansas State ends up being pretty good, I think he can be in consideration. Next up is going to be the Pac-12 conference, a new look conference. Obviously, everything kind of went downhill a couple of years ago, but they have a bunch of new teams. And one of the new teams that's pretty shocking is Texas State. And a lot of people are pretty low on Texas State next year, but I'm actually super high on them. I love Brad Jackson, their quarterback. He brings back like every single one of his wide receiver targets. He had some unbelievable ones last year. The offense was amazing. They passed the ball a ton. And with all those guys returning, I think, he's going to have another great season. I'm really high on Texas State as a whole, and I think Brad Jackson will end up being one of those guys. And if Texas State kind of goes from being projected like maybe eighth or seventh in the conference to go all the way up to like a fourth, then I can definitely see Brad Jackson being at least in contention to potentially win the Conference Player of the Year. Next up is going to be the Mountain West, in which I'm picking Micah Alahado from Hawaii. If you haven't watched this kid play, you absolutely have to watch him. He was a freshman last year. Unbelievable player. He ended up doing really well against some top programs like Cal in the Hawaii Bowl at the end of last season. Just steps up against good competition, played well against Stanford as well. Really good to get out of the pocket. He's quick. He's kind of a short guy, but really good player. I believe he's a Hawaii native as well. But yeah, I'm super high on Mike Alhado. I think he's great. The question is, how good will Hawaii be? And I think a lot of that's dependent on him and how good he's actually going to be. So I think if he's going to do well, Hawaii's going to do well. And I think he can potentially be in consideration to potentially win the Mountain West Player of the Year if things go his way. Now, for the Big 12, I think I'm going to go with Cam Cook for West Virginia. Now, Cook was really good at TCU a couple years ago, had about 800 yards for them, but made a shocking move to go to Jacksonville State. But, personally, I thought it was a little bit weird at first, but completely understand it. He ended up leading the entire nation in rushing yards with about 1,600, I think. And now he's headed to West Virginia in an offense that's going to rely around him. I really love this for them. I can't wait to watch West Virginia play next season. And I think a lot of the success they're going to get is based off Cam Cook. Now, West Virginia's probably going to suck regardless, but Cam Cook's an amazing player, and I think he's definitely a potential guy that could end up winning the award. Now, next up for the Big Ten for the Dark Horse Award, I'm going to go with Rocco Becht. Now, as an Iowa State guy, it hurts me to see him leave. But regardless, I mean, he was really good in his time at Iowa State. And now going to Penn State, there's so many different guys from that Iowa State roster that are going on with him, including his head coach, Matt Campbell. They're probably going to play a very similar system. He has a lot of weapons coming with him at Penn State. And Penn State's expectations, I think, are pretty low based on how poor of a 2025 season they had. So now bringing in Rocco Becht, if he's able to at least just increase the ceiling a little bit and end up, I have him fourth in the conference, but I can see them, kind of anywhere in that area. I think if he's able to do that and, play a key part in that, he definitely could potentially be the Big Ten Player of the Year. I'm on to the final two here, and I absolutely love both of these picks. I'm on to the SEC now, and it's going to be Byrum Brown from Auburn. I absolutely love Byrum Brown. He was great for USF last year under Alex Golesh. Now he transfers to Auburn, also under Alex Golesh. A lot of the USF guys come with him. And yeah, the reality is Auburn's probably not going to be very good. I get it. But I love Byrum Brown. I think he's, a potential top 10 Heisman candidate. I know that's a little crazy, but I really think he's that good. And it's kind of hard because, like I said, Auburn's not going to be very good. The team in 12th place of the SEC is not going to have a conference player of the year. But I think if Auburn's able to get up to like an eighth, then potentially we're having a conversation here. That's why I put him in dark horses because he's probably going to be not playing super meaningful football, but he's such a good player that it's hard not to mention him. Now, finally is going to be the ACC, and for this one, I'm going to go with Jaren Kiawe Songapolu-Tele from the Cal Golden Bears. Now, he came in as a freshman last year. He ended up like committing to Cal and going to Oregon, then back to Cal. But he found his place at Cal, and he was super, super good while he was there. Ended up leading Cal to a pretty solid season, and I'm really high on Cal for this upcoming season. I think they have a really good offense. They brought in some guys on defense. They used the transfer portal really well as a whole. And I think that JKS now has a lot of weapons for him that he didn't really have as much last year. JKS did struggle at times. He did have his tough games, but I think overall he played pretty well. I think he's just a really good passer as a whole. And yeah, I think Cal has a lot of potential. I think when they do well, JKS is going to get a lot of the shine, which is very well deserved. And because of that, I think he's going to end up being a potential dark horse to win the ACC Player of the Year. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to stay tuned for more college football content or college sports content as a whole, make sure to stay tuned on the channel for more.